Hello and welcome to this episode of Pipeline to Profitability. I'm Alan Ferguson. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Service Success Academy. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Danielle Davies. Danielle is responsible for bringing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, to Australia. Danielle has over 20 years history building companies, and his obsession is helping organizations to clarify, simplify, and achieve their vision. Let's get into this episode, shall we? So welcome to the podcast, Danielle. Now, the brief bio I did for you probably doesn't do you, it doesn't explain everything that you've accomplished over the years, but I just want to say that, I've learned so much from you. You're one of my friends, mentors, and I really loved the EOS journey. And so maybe I've got a lot of followers on this podcast that are small businesses, probably wondering a little bit about EOS and what it does. So maybe you might like to explain that in plain English, EOS, the visionary, the integrator, and everything that's going to help change some lives from our podcast listeners. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be on here and to even see that you're doing this for the community to be able to learn. Business is a learning game at the end of the day, and it's something you and I have discussed many times. That's what makes it fun. You're always learning. There's always new things to try, and not all of them work. But today I'm going to be talking about EOS, something that we both know does work, and hence has quite a following. So EOS, for those of you who haven't heard about it, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. When we say an operating system, effectively, it's a set of tools that we teach our clients and then help them implement them into the business so that they get what they want from their business, put simply. So basically, we exist to help people get what they want from their business. Specifically, how we do that is we work with leadership teams. And when we say a leadership team, that's typically, as you were just sharing, the visionary, often the founder of the company, the integrator, also known as the general manager or the captain of the team, and then the heads of each of the key departments. So people and culture, sales and marketing, operations and finance. And ultimately what we do is help them with three fundamentals, right? Firstly, vision, just getting us aligned with where are we going and how are we going to get there? What does that look like? And it's not because companies don't have visions. It's simply that they haven't really sat down, discussed it and simplified it and got onto the same page with what that looks like. And when you set that kind of North Star, the BHAG, and then you work back from that, where are we 3 years, 1 year from now, 90 days? It just helps people see a path on how to get to where they want to go. And that varies wildly from company to company that I've worked with over the years. I've had some companies walk in here and say, Dan, I just want to build a $10 million revenue business that's lifestyle, and we all love working here, and it's just a real feel-good place. And I've got, I think the highest target we've got is with my client base at the moment is 3.3 billion is their goal by 2033. So you can see that varies wildly. The point is getting everyone aligned with what that vision is, then helping them with the tools to achieve it. So we call that traction. Hence the name of the book, Traction by Gino Wickman. It's often, EOS is often referred to as traction. So that's where the link is there for anyone who's wondering. So giving them the tools, disciplines, and accountabilities to bring that vision into reality. So they're not just dreaming, they're actually executing well. And the final piece there is healthy. And when we say healthy, it means just building a culture where we've got a healthy, cohesive leadership team that's able to be open and honest with one another, be vulnerable and share when they've messed up on something or they're not sure that they're on the same page with something, where people can be heard and their inputs are valued. So ultimately just helping them with vision, traction, and healthy are the three fundamental things that we want to achieve to help people on their journey.
Fantastic. I got introduced to you before. I think you were originally, your business Gallup, I think it was, and I'm not too sure of the relevance of that when you moved across to EOS. But I've shared this with you, and I don't know if I've shared with too many of our listeners. I was introduced to Gino Wickman, who I've never met, by the way, and I know you're very close with Gino. I was introduced to him, the book Traction, and the whole EOS operating system about 10 years ago via Service Roundtable, which I do a lot of work with in the US. And there was like a case study on how powerful it was. And then when, one of my team members mentioned, oh, there's this great guy called Daniel Davies, and he's got this operating system called EOS. I was excited, and then I think I'd read Traction. I've read it a few times, and I've listened to it. And the thing is, some of my the companies that some of the podcast guests I've had on, I think several now have recommended Traction and other EOS books as part of their books that they got a lot out of. And so I had come across this amazing system, and then I met you, and then you sort of opened up to me the visionary integrator relationship. And I think that is probably one of the key parts of this. This is why I love the whole EOS operating system so much. So maybe we'll dive into that a little bit, Daniel. And I know you're going to have a great book recommendation at the end of the of the podcast. So you're not allowed to use Traction. You're not allowed to use Rocket Fuel, which I know are two of the books. So I'm gonna challenge you to bring another great book to
that's fine.
So let's dive into that a little bit, my man.
Yes. So Rocket Fuel was, I think, I'm a visionary myself, so the detail person, it's not me, but I think it was about the third or fourth book in the EOS library. And Rocket Fuel was written by Gino Wickman and Mark Winters out of the US. He's another EOS implementer. And it was written to dive into this specific subject, as you mentioned, of what is the role of a visionary and what is the role of an integrator. And the reason why we created the book initially was that these two roles are key to a company's success, and yet they often get muddled up, and yet they see the world through two different lenses. So there's a lot of friction there. I've literally had people come in and say, we kind of hate one another, right? We're always fighting. And then I give them Rocket Fuel on a Friday afternoon, and they call me on Monday and say, we love each other because we understand the roles that we play. And it's funny, just before I came on this podcast this morning, I was having a what I call a healthy discussion with my integrator, Fran. And Francesca and I were talking about some new business modeling that we're looking at. And the whole concept is there should be a healthy friction there around the way each of you see things, because at the end of those discussions, which may go on for weeks or months, in our case, we're trying to work something out. At the end, you'll get the best result. And so from a basic level, explaining what a visionary and an integrator is. A visionary is typically the founder of the company, and they're an ideas person. The listeners will be, many of them probably thinking, I think he's about to say, this is me. They've got lots of ideas, often great with the sales side of the business, building relationships, innovating, problem solving, very good at that kind of stuff. And they like to fly at, as we say, 40,000 feet. They love that big thinking. On the flip side, we've got the integrator. And the integrator, also known as the GM, general manager, is what I refer to them as the captain of the team. They're the person who's there every day of the week. They're running the business. They're holding people accountable. They're executing on the P&L and the business plan. They're just making sure the trains run on time, so to speak, right? And they're okay with diving into detailed discussions to try and solve problems. Visionaries, you notice, they tend to get a little bit irritated if a conversation runs on too long. And so that's a little bit of a lens of the two, visionary and integrator. And sometimes we see visionaries who are trying to do the integrator role because they started the business and they've naturally just built the thing. Everyone reports into them. And after a period of time, often a few years in, they start to get irritable. They've got lots of people reporting into them, lots of problems to solve every day, and they want to talk about big stuff, and they're having to deal with this, is payroll going through on Friday, and how's the cash flow? And they're just like, this stuff's really peeing me off, right? And so it might be time to read the Rocket Fuel book and discover the power of an integrator. And an integrator is a really special human being, because visionaries, I refer to them similar to on the soccer pitch, football for some of the listeners, right? They're the ones who kick the goal, right? They score the tries, they do the touchdowns, right? And they get all the glory. Everyone's like, look at that. So the visionary often gets all the glory, and the integrator is the one who's actually doing all the work and, really getting things across the line. But together, they form a great team. And so check out Rocket Fuel, the Rocket Fuel book, and also the website. You can go onto rocketfuelnow.com. So rocketfuelnow.com. And there's a test that you can do in there, the visionary and integrator test, and it will give you a score. There's a series of questions, and it will give you a visionary score and an integrator score, and you'll be able to see which one you naturally best fit. So I'm a 93 visionary and a 62 integrator. And I can tell you, I think it was being pretty generous giving me a 62 integrator. That's me knowing what I should do, even though I don't want to do it. But it shows when you're a 93 visionary, it shows that your natural space, you're going to best perform as a visionary, and you should get yourself a great integrator.
Love that, Daniel. And I send that web page, that link, to people that I work with, just so they can test themselves. And I'm not as high a visionary as you. I think I've done it a few times, and I come in high 80s. I think the last time I did it was 89 visionary, and I think I was about a 67 integrator. Now, interesting. It's an interesting concept, and I know you probably come across highly successful people that have high visionary and high integrator. I think we've talked about this. I know it's rare, but I've actually have come across people that have been able to do both roles. Now that would be, would you say that's a 1%er?
Yeah, so I call them a unicorn, so they are quite rare. Sometimes what you'll see, and this will be disappointing for the egos of some of the visionaries listening to this, is that integrators can actually succeed in business quite well, right? So an integrator, a founder or a leader who's just naturally a great integrator, can typically do quite well. They might not have the visionary things for new ideas and solving big issues, but you can get that solved through great peer groups, having some visionary friends. Visionaries are like pretty quick. You can go to dinner with somebody and talk about your business a little bit, and a visionary will say, hey, you should try this. And a great integrator will go, okay, that's a great idea. And off they go, and they'll be wildly successful. It's actually visionaries that don't have an integrator. They're the ones who really struggle. Because they're not so great at running day-to-day business affairs. And so integrators are actually the diamonds that we're looking for out there. They're the rarity. And yeah, so just be aware. And the interesting thing is visionaries, as I mentioned earlier, often get irritated by integrators because integrators challenge them and say, no, that's not a good idea. Or that's not in the plan. It's not in the budget. Sorry, you can't do that. And we're like, what do you mean you can't? Well, you can't tell me what I can and can't do. And they've got big egos. That's a trait of visionaries. Or they can have big egos. So they don't like being told what they can and can't do. But so a little gem, I would say, is to all the visionaries out there, beware the person who always agrees with you or thinks that your ideas are great ideas, and not the person who's going to help you be successful in business. They're great people to go to the pub with and have a drink and have a great night, but they're not the person who's going to help you succeed in business. You want somebody who's actually going to challenge your ideas, because humbly, not all of our ideas are great. In fact, it could be argued that probably 20% of them are great, and the other 80% are a distraction.
A shiny object.
shiny object, as we call it.
Interesting. Because I've spent so much time around you and really learning the whole EOS operating system, I can spot integrators now. It's just like, and I, when I come across an integrator, I just say, there's a person who gets shit done.
Yes.
Right? Because the integrator does get shit done. The visionary, so look, if I had a higher integrator score, I'd probably get shit done. But look, I managed to get my companies to around 15 million in revenue without having I had integrators, but not to the same level. And then I got frustrated all the time because I wanted to keep my business growing. And then it was like, when I got introduced to you and I knew about the EOS system, I thought, fuck, this is exactly what I need to get to the next level. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the circumstances I went through, because most people who know me, I went through a pretty rough time. Not so much, nothing to do with the EOS system. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be doing this podcast with you. I think, and this is a really important one, is getting that right integrator. And, I made some fatal mistakes, but we all do, right? That's life, that's business. And maybe also, I'd like to dive into that, because you are very good with helping companies to get the right integrator, but maybe some example of great companies that have had the visionary integrator relationship. And I mean, I automatically think of Walt Disney, and I forget the name of his brother, and most people probably do, right? But if it wasn't for his brother, there would be no fucking Disney. Am I right in saying that, Dan?
Spot on. And I think the same was in history for Henry Ford and many others, right? And so a couple of points there that I would share on this subject of visionary and integrator, because I often see visionaries struggle because they say, okay, this sounds great. I need to get myself an integrator. And they get this great integrator. And as you say, this integrator just gets shit done, executes on the vision, the business plan, holds the team accountable, makes sure that the business is profitable, etc. And the visionary kind of flounders a little bit, because they're like, well, what do I do now? Where do I fit, right? Because in most companies, certainly in growth phase companies, the visionary role isn't a full-time role, right? It's not something that requires your 40, 50, 60 hours a week of energy that you're willing to put into the company. So I just want to share a little insight on that one for anyone who's thinking, well, what do I do all day? Here's how it would work. When we look at what we call the accountability chart, the visionary has what we call a seat, and we've got some accountabilities to that seat. The integrator has their seat, and we write out the accountabilities, what they're accountable for, and then we do the same for all of the chart. Many visionaries have skill sets that work really well within the business, and often they start the company because of a passion for the industry, right? So, plumbing, for example, they might be great at their job, they're great, or electrical, or anything, marketing, services, lawyers, etc. So when they get the company to that point, just be aware that they can play a role within the accountability chart. So they might be really good at their particular skill set. They can, if they wish, just become a team member and work doing that role that they love doing. We've got landscapers, for example, that have built a big company, and they say, Dan, the business is big and now it's running by itself. Like, what do I do all day? And I say, well, what do you want to do? What do you love doing? And they say, I love landscaping. I loved going out and helping people build their dream home. And I say, well, go and do that. That's what you should do. Just be aware that if you do that, you must respect the reporting lines. You can't say, I'm going to take today off and play golf because it's good weather. You have to respect, if you're going to take a role within the company in the accountability chart, you do that role and you respect the manager that you report to, and you just play that role. So you can play a split role within the company. You just respect the reporting lines. So that's just a little note to everybody. And I often cite my own role. You know me, Alan. I bought the brand overseas, and I played the head of this region for our growth here in the APAC region for many years. But it wasn't a full-time role. It was a day a week. The rest of the time I was here as an EOS implementer, working hands-on with clients. It's what I love doing. And once it was big enough, actually, last year I handed over the leadership role, and now every day I get to work for the most part with clients because it's what I like doing. So just be aware that visionary who's getting a little lost thinking, what do I do all day if I get an integrator? You can go and do other things or just do other ventures altogether, as long as you don't distract the team. So there's something there. Circling back, another little nugget there that I want to share, talking about this visionary and integrator role, and for any role for that matter. This came up the other day with a client. The subject of all of us are skilled with a particular tool. It's a business tool and it's a life tool that many of us overlook. And I know that you've experienced this, Alan, so I'm going to bring this one up, right? It's called gut feel. All of us have it. It's for free. God gave it to us when he built us, right? We've got it, right? Gut feel. The opponent to gut feel is what I term the romantic notion. It's what you want it to be versus what the gut is telling you. Listen to your gut, because it is very, very rarely incorrect, right? And so sometimes you're going to recruit somebody, might be the integrator, could be any of the team, could be an EOS implementer, just some, a consultant, somebody that you're using. If it doesn't feel good in here, it's not feeling right, something's off, you need to explore that, listen to it and ask yourself, why am I getting that feeling? Sometimes, as I say, our romantic notion, what our desire for, what we want it to feel like, is so strong that we ignore the gut feel. We say, shut up, I don't want to listen to you because I really want this to work. I've got this dream of what my life is going to look like now that I've got this integrator, for example, and I just want to go and play golf and spend time with my family more and whatever it is, right? I've got this dream now. And if this integrator role doesn't work out, I'm going to have to go back into that role for a little while and start the search again. And that's just too painful. I'm just going to finish off on that. Listen to your gut feel. It's a tool that we have for free. And I often see people not listen to it because they want it to work more than what they are willing to listen to their instincts.
Fantastic. I've gone against my gut so many times, and I believe from some of the lessons I've learned, and life is a lesson, right? We there's really no mistakes. There's only lessons in everything, because none of us are getting out of this alive. I reckon 80% of the time my gut has been correct, and I've gone against it because, for whatever reason, I don't want to go into the detail there, but you're 100% on that. Something else, Daniel, I had a really good conversation last week. I was in Dallas working with two of the greatest service companies I've ever worked with. These companies are probably going to lead the way the industry is going to be run over the next 10 years. That's my opinion. And had a great conversation with one of the founders, and he said, Alan, and I'm not mentioning the names of the best practice group. He said, have you noticed that this particular best practice group, there's no big companies come out of it? Like, it's a successful best practice group. And he said to me, do you know why? And I said, I'd love to hear your opinion. And he said, because they don't have any, the companies that they're coaching don't have great visionaries. So the companies are not really, there's one or two companies pop out that are really successful, like wildly successful, but the majority of the companies in this particular group have not got strong visionaries. And look, I look at, and without saying anything negative about the service company that I founded, it doesn't have a visionary in it at the moment. It's a fraction of the company that it was. And that's just, and that's not a bad thing. It's probably, it's ticking along all right, but have that strong visionary is just as important as having the right integrator, right?
Completely. And, a visionary is effectively what I would say locked up if they don't have the integrator. The integrator sets the visionary free and also controls all the ideas that are coming in from the visionary. But visionaries really perform best when they are unlocked, and if they're in good peer groups. I do a lot of work with companies who are members of EO and YPO. And many of them, Vern Harnish has done fantastic work with scaling up. Many of them have been using that, and it's very successful. That's one thing that's unique about us at EOS. We just encourage you to use any system. Any system is better than no system. So check them all out. It's like I always say, better to go to a gym than no gym, right? Do some exercise. You're going to learn lots. And EO Entrepreneurs Organization, is full of fantastic, not all visionaries, but many visionaries, and having that peer group, peer-to-peer learning is a phenomenal experience for their members. So I agree. When when a business without a strong visionary probably won't perform as well as what it could. Yeah, definitely.
No, that's it. So Daniel, back to the thanks again for jumping on here. This is, I've been wanting to do this podcast with you for so long, and we've had a hell of a journey together. It's been there's been some really good times come from it, and there's been some challenges, but that's as I said, that's life. So, is there any particular book right now that you would recommend our listeners? And also, well, I'll let you go with that, because I'm sure you'll have something that I'm going to look forward to read.
Yeah, sure. Well, in terms of the EOS library, this is going to be a funny one for everybody, and particularly any visionaries. The latest book that's been released is called Process. So you can check it out via the EOS Worldwide website and the EOS library there. So there's a book called Process, and effectively it's diving into the subject of the value of process and how to, pitch process to the team and get them to start documenting processes and then using them in the company. Many benefits off the back of it, obviously. Consistency for our customers, consistency for our team members, and the flow and effects of that in terms of consistent experiences. Massive value add for companies when they've got those things dialed in, and frees up the team, de-risks the team, etc. So check out the Process book. And the other book, it's not exactly in the EOS library, but it's right next to it, is called ProfitWorks. Definitely check out ProfitWorks. It's one of my favorite books, and it's written by one of the EOS implementers, and it's talking to how to create incentive schemes that work for your company and your team based off the company's profit performance. And so I really love that book. ProfitWorks, so check that out also. Both quick and pretty easy reads, but they're very practical in their application, so you can take away from the book and implement the tools into your business.
Fantastic, Daniel. So that's been great. And look, I have quite a few clients that follow not just this podcast, but also my training, mine and Joe Cunningham's training. We have clients in Australia, we have clients in the US. Now, I don't know if you work with any clients in the US, but for all of our Australian listeners, and we have quite a few, how the hell do they get a hold of Daniel Davies, and what's the next step? And hopefully we've got some little giveaways we can put in the show notes that might lead them to you and what you're about, even just to reach out and see if there's a fit.
Sure. So definitely welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, Daniel Davis and EOS, and it will come up. It'll link you. I'm here in Sydney, Australia. But if you want to check out EOS implementers, you can go to eosworldwide.com. And I encourage you to go there anyway, because a couple of things. Number one, you can check out EOS implementers, and I'm on the directory. So you click on Australia and you'll see me there. So you can connect with me and send me messages, etc. from there. and we can connect, and I can steer you in the right direction of, you can have a chat with me and I can steer you in the direction of an EOS implementer that will work best for you. But also there's some fantastic content on there, and I strongly encourage everybody to click on the I guess it's a newsletter. I'm trying to think of what it is. It's, where you subscribe, and they just send you content, really valuable content written by the EOS implementer community, and they're typically 2-minute reads, but there's some nuggets in there. I read them at breakfast every morning, and they're fantastic. So check that out. Some great tips for helping you with your business journey.
Fantastic, Daniel. Thanks again. I just want to quickly also say that I'm definitely going to check out that book Process, and we're actually implementing we're utilizing I can't remember the name. It's a company in Melbourne. I think Dave Jennings was.
Yes. Systemology.
Systemology. We're implementing that into our companies.
Yep.
Mine and Joe. Joe's companies that I'm currently employed at the moment, and there's that, and there is a company that I've worked with for a few years, and I consider this particular company is one of my mentors, and they're big on systems. It's Ken Goodrich, and the company is Gettle, and he's always talked about systems and the importance. And I've met Michael Gerber a few times, which is one of the creators. But what I know is that the companies that really focus on the systems and the processes will outperform all of their competition.
For sure.
It's yes, that's great. So thanks again, Daniel. Really good to see you, my man. And thanks for everyone for joining this Pipeline to Profitability podcast, and look forward to catching up with you all on the next podcast. And good to see you, buddy.